My name is Peyton. I'm 34 years old, and I currently work as a senior manager at a media company in Seattle. My life had always been quiet, orderly, even a little resigned until last Christmas. The whole extended family gathered at my brother's new mansion on the California coast, a $2.4 million house my parents proudly bragged about to anyone who would listen. And me? I had arrived 3 days earlier, cooking nonstop, preparing every dish, cleaning every corner. Yet, in the middle of the party, my mother turned to the guests and laughed. She's basically the family's catering staff. I froze. And when I silently shook my head, unwilling to fetch Tyler a glass of water, my mother stared straight at me and said, "If you don't want to help, then don't come anymore." So this year I didn't go, and they called the police. Have you ever been treated like hired help in your own family? Have you ever felt that your existence only mattered when you gave endlessly? If you've ever felt that, share it with me in the comments. Hit like if this story struck a chord, and don't forget to subscribe to follow my journey of walking out of their kitchen to reclaim my own worth. Because after that call to the police, everything was only just beginning. It took me nearly 10 years to realize I wasn't really a daughter in my parents' eyes. I was logistics, unpaid housekeeping, the invisible hand that always reached out at the right time, always smiled on cue, always disappeared behind the kitchen door to keep everything looking perfect. From Thanksgiving to Christmas, from my dad's birthdays to Tyler's engagement party, I was always the one to show up early, handle the work, and leave late. Peyton, can you decorate the tree? Tyler's busy with a meeting. Can you cook the old beef roast? Dad likes it the way Mom used to make it. Can you come early tomorrow? We've got important guests, and Mom doesn't want the house looking messy. And I listened. I did it all. Never a no. One year I booked a 6 a.m. flight just to make it in time for dinner. Another time I used 3 vacation days, not for travel, but so I could buy groceries, prep ingredients, and scrub the house top to bottom. No one mentioned my job. No one asked about my paycheck. They only needed me to play the role. Tyler was different. My brother never washed a dish, never showed up early to help Mom with decorations, yet he was always praised. Tyler's so busy, so successful, so thoughtful to bring wine at the perfect time. Every time he walked into a room, the conversation turned to him: real estate, VIP clients, million-dollar deals. And me, the one who had cooked an entire dinner for 30 people, wasn't even mentioned in Dad's toast. I still remember when Mom said, "She's the family's catering staff," in front of everyone. Just one line, but it cut deeper than any blade. I stood rooted in the living room, hands sticky with sauce, hair unwashed from that morning, eyes burning from chopping onions. When I didn't respond, only turned away in silence, I heard her call after me, "If you don't want to help, then don't come anymore." I didn't cry right then. I just felt cold. Even with lights glowing and the fireplace roaring, I went home the next morning on the earliest flight. No one called, no one texted, as if I'd never been there. 2 days later, I started keeping a journal. Not the kind that records daily minutia. I wrote down what I had done, what I had endured, what I had given. I drew charts, lists red for tasks I took on, green for thank yous I never received. On the very first page, I scrawled in bold, "This isn't family if I have to serve in order to be accepted." I looked back at the last 5 years. Every Christmas, I planned, mailed invitations, made at least 5 dishes. I never sat through a full meal. I found a photo from Christmas 2 years. The whole family around the table, everyone smiling. I wasn't in it. I was literally in the kitchen. I thought of last Thanksgiving. Tyler showed up almost 2 hours late with a bottle of wine, and everyone clapped. I had been up since 5 a.m., marinating the turkey, hand-making cranberry sauce just the way Dad liked it, and no one mentioned me. I started a chart called Balance for Myself. First column, what I do for them. Second column, what they've ever done for me. The page filled quickly, one side weighed down like a lopsided scale. I wrote another list, what I need. Not gifts, not hollow praise. I needed to be called by name, to be asked how I was, to sit at the table and eat a hot meal while the conversation went on. That night, I dreamed I was in the familiar kitchen while everyone else dined in the living room. I called out, "Mom, dessert's ready." No answer. I walked out to find the party over, everyone gone. No one had waited for me. I woke at 3 a.m., heart racing, throat dry. I opened my laptop, created a file titled, "Do Not Return." I hadn't told anyone. I still pretended to read the group chat, still replied, "Sounds good," when Mom discussed decorating Tyler's house. But inside, I was packing away what needed to be kept for myself. I bought a small notebook, each page a reason not to fall back into the old role. I wrote in purple ink, slow and deliberate. No one asks if I'm tired. No one remembers my birthday unless I remind them. Tyler has never cooked for the family, yet he's called the glue that holds us together. Dad once told me, women should know how to care. Tyler's the one who needs to succeed. I read those lines without tears. I just saw clearly. I wasn't withdrawing from family. I was stepping out of a role that was never truly mine. One evening, sitting in my small home office in Seattle, a new email notification flashed. Subject, Christmas 2025 plan. From Mom. No greeting, no question. Just a PDF attachment titled MENU GSX Peyton Prep. I opened it. The first page was bold, centered. This year's Christmas menu tailored to family taste. Beneath it, in equally bold type, Peyton will handle the following dishes. The list had 8: honey mustard roasted chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, cranberry tart, romaine salad with blue cheese dressing, garlic bread, starter soup, and chocolate fudge for dessert. At the end, arrive by 8:30 am to prep with Mom. Tyler has a client meeting at 10, so he can't help. I stared at the screen, my hand tightening around the mouse. Not a single line asking if I was free, if I wanted to, if I needed help. Just orders disguised as tradition. My phone buzzed. Group chat, Walker Christmas planning. Tyler, did you see the email? It's nothing. You can whip those up in 2 hours. Mom and I will handle flowers so you don't worry about decor. I typed a reply. Did it ever occur to you to cook one meal yourself? Then I deleted it. I typed another. I won't be joining this year. Deleted again. I leaned back, opened my do not return file, skimmed the reasons I'd written. The last one from a week ago. No one asks if I'm tired, but everyone expects me to show up. Something tiny cracked inside me. Not loud, not dramatic, just the faint break of a glass hairline. I didn't cry. I just reread Mom's email to the end. The last line, Tyler said his guests loved your chocolate pecan pie last year. Make it exactly the same, I sighed. Last year, that pie had taken me 4 hours. Egg yolks beaten to pale cream, oven temperature adjusted minute by minute so the crust wouldn't crack. I remembered plating the final slice after everyone had left the table. I was the only one who didn't get a piece. Mom only said, "Gone already." Everyone loved it. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water. The clock showed past 9 p.m. I hadn't eaten since lunch. Seattle's damp winter pressed against the window, but there was one thing I no longer wanted to keep pressed down: my silence. I returned to my desk, opened a new email addressed to mom.walker@gmail.com. Subject: about this year's Christmas. I typed, "I got your list. I'm thinking about it. When I decide, I'll let you know." Short, no anger, no accusations. I reread it 3 times. Then, sent. Moments later, my phone buzzed. Tyler, Are you seriously not coming? Mom's worried. Just do me a favor one more time. I didn't answer, but inside a tide was rising. I had never refused before. Not at work, not in family, not in past relationships. I was always the fixer, the peacemaker, the one who endured. But something was shifting. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe it was because last year Mom had said, then don't come. And I was finally doing exactly that. An hour later, Mom's reply landed. Sweetheart, you're letting emotions take over. Christmas isn't about creating distance. Just do it like every year. You've always been the one who keeps everything in order. I reread, you've always been the one who keeps everything in order. Yes, because I always carried the weight. Not because I was ever heard. I opened a browser, searched flights to Arizona. Ava, my college best friend, had invited me earlier in December when she saw me bracing for another holiday burden. Come with me, just us two. No deadlines, no group chat, no cutting boards, no oven. I had laughed it off then, but now I typed Peyton Walker. Selected December 24 morning flight Seattle to Phoenix. I didn't buy it right away. I just kept the reservation open, a small promise to myself that I had the right to choose. I pulled out my gray suitcase, wiped off the dust, left it open. The trip wasn't certain yet, but a decision was forming, and in the quiet, I could hear it more clearly than ever. Later that night, I booked the Phoenix flight, early morning December 24. Enough to dodge questions, texts, unnecessary calls. I added a checked bag. Ava said to bring good trekking shoes, sun gear, and a book for reading in the tent. We'd head into the low mountains of southern Arizona near the Mexico border. No signal, no group chat, no kitchen waiting to be cleaned. I told no one, no explanation, just a screenshot saved under private plans. The next day, while at my office desk, a new email popped up. Subject, Tea, if you're free. From Aunt Sylvia. It took me a moment to remember Sylvia was Mom's sister, the one no one mentioned for over a decade. The last time I'd seen her was at Grandma's funeral. She wore a moss green sweater, wire-rimmed glasses, and carried wildflowers instead of funeral lilies. Mom's stare at her that day had been icy, as if nothing was left between them. Since then, Sylvia vanished from every holiday. No photos, no letters, no name on any list. I opened her email. The first line was simple. I read a few lines you wrote about the holidays. She must have seen the photo I'd shared the dining table without me. Captioned, when you're always behind everything, no one thinks to turn around. Her email continued, if you have time, come for tea. We don't even need to talk. I just want you to know, you're not crazy, and you're not alone. I read it 3 times, then replied, I can come tonight. Her apartment was in Fremont, about a 10-minute walk from my office. Ferns lined the entryway, potted plants arranged neatly on wooden steps. Warm light spilled from inside, cozy like an old cafe. When I knocked, Sylvia opened the door right away, as if she'd been waiting. Hello, Peyton, she said gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. Come in, the tea's ready. The room smelled of chamomile and dried orange peel. I sat down on the linen-covered chair by the window, taking the teacup in both hands. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said with a soft smile, setting a tray of cookies on the low wooden table. But I hoped. I nodded without speaking. There was something in the air I didn't want to break with words. Maybe it was peace. I know that feeling, Sylvia said after a few quiet minutes. The feeling of always being there but never really present, like you're only useful when your hands are busy. I gripped the cup tighter, heat stinging my eyes. Your mom once told me I was irresponsible because I didn't marry, didn't go into teaching like she wanted. But the truth is, I couldn't live pretending. She gave me a gentle smile, no judgment in her eyes. I chose to leave, because staying meant becoming a version of myself I wouldn't recognize. I never dared leave, I whispered. And I never even thought I had the right to. Sylvia stayed quiet for a moment, then poured more tea into my cup. Do you know why your mom always chose Tyler? I shook my head. Because you're the oldest daughter, she answered. And to your mom, that meant you had to yield, to endure, to set the example. Tyler was chosen to shine, and you were meant to learn how to live under that light without blinking. I closed my eyes. Memories rushed back. At 12, skipping my piano recital because Tyler broke the fish tank. At 15, no birthday party because it overlapped with Dad's promotion. At 19, going to the doctor alone because Mom was too busy planning Tyler's college celebration. The problem isn't you, Sylvia said. It's how they define a woman's role in the family. To sacrifice, to stay quiet, to cook well and smile while someone else takes the credit. I let out a bitter laugh. I must have gotten so good at it they forgot to even ask if I wanted to. Then it's time to remind them, she said firmly, not with anger, but with absence. I looked at her. Have you ever regretted walking away? Yes, but only that I didn't do it sooner. I didn't ask anything else. When I left her apartment near 9 p.m., I carried a small bag in my hand. Inside was the book she gave me, Women Who Run with the Wolves. On the inside cover she had written, "For the one learning how to live, not just exist." At home, I set the bag on my table. I opened my suitcase and began folding clothes. Slowly, deliberately, as if each fold was part of a life being remade. I added my hiking boots, a wide-brimmed hat, and a small box with 3 bottles of essential oils. Last, I placed the notebook titled "Do Not Return," but this time, I opened to a fresh page. At the top, in black ink, I wrote, "Go," but not to run away, go so you can be seen. I waited until Saturday morning, after a full dreamless night of sleep, before opening my phone and going into the family group chat. The group was called Walker Christmas Planning, where every year Mom posted food photos, guest lists, recipes, even the playlist for the family's traditional Christmas music. I typed each word slowly, not editing once I finished. I will not be attending Christmas this year. I have other plans. That was all. Less than 2 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom. I stood from my chair, took a deep breath, and answered. Peyton, you're joking, right? Of course not, Mom. You're destroying family tradition. Do you realize that? By doing this, you're cutting yourself out of the family. I held the phone slightly away from my ear, her voice so sharp it was like I'd set fire to the Christmas tree in front of everyone. Have you ever asked if I even wanted to be part of it? I asked, my voice so calm it surprised me. Or did you just assign tasks and call it tradition? You've always been the best at preparing. Everyone depends on you because you're good at it. Why are you turning your back now? Being good doesn't mean being willing, Mom. You're being selfish, she hissed. Tyler is busy too, but he still finds time to host friends, to prepare for client meetings. And have you ever asked Tyler what dish he can cook? No answer. I exhaled. I've made myself clear. I'm not coming. You don't need to call again. I hung up. About an hour later, Tyler posted in the group chat, "Okay, fine. We'll call Uber Eats. Don't forget to tell the chef extra spicy cranberry sauce for you." No one laughed. No one reacted. I read it over and over. Not sad, just empty. A hollowness not from outside, but from a room inside me that had once been filled with hope. The next morning, when I opened my phone to schedule carpet cleaning, I realized the group chat was gone. I logged out, logged back in. Nothing changed. I hadn't left the group. I'd been blocked. I checked Mom's profile. Inaccessible. Tyler's too. I tried Dad's. He rarely posted, barely used social media. Still there. I opened our old messages. The last one he'd sent me back in February was a photo of his bonsai in the backyard, with the caption, "It lived." I typed a short message, "Dad, I'll be away during the holidays. If you need to know why, I'm always open to talk." No reply. I wasn't shocked. But I hadn't expected them to react like this. I went to the office earlier than usual. Not to work overtime, but because I needed a place where no one would call, no one would shout that I had ruined something I never chose. During my lunch break, I called Ava. "The ticket's booked," I said, December 24. Her voice lit up. "Yes. Peyton, I'm really happy for you. We'll hike among the red rocks, eat charred tacos, and talk about literally anything except relatives." I laughed. "I better pack ginger tea for my stomach. Don't worry, I've got it covered. And bring that notebook of yours. Every night, we'll each write one thing we won't tolerate anymore." I didn't promise, but I nodded. That afternoon, when I got home, I checked the mail downstairs. There was a small package, no sender name. Inside was a handkerchief embroidered with my name, Peyton, in pale purple thread. A folded note lay tucked within. "Even if they don't see you, I do. Sylvia." I placed the handkerchief in my desk drawer, folded carefully like storing a piece of history in its rightful place. That evening, I walked around Green Lake. The path was quiet, cold wind cutting, water reflecting the faraway lights. An elderly couple passed me, hand in hand, sharing one wool scarf. A group of students threw snowballs, laughter echoing across the park. I walked slowly, each step left behind a question. If I vanished from the dinner table, would they notice? If I never roasted the chicken, would anyone miss the taste? If I wasn't the one keeping order, would anyone see it mattered? The wind bit at my neck. I pulled out my phone, opened notes, created a new entry, "Things that no longer belong to me," typed the first line, "Meals where I'm not invited to sit." I was packing clothes into my suitcase when the doorbell rang. The knock wasn't hurried, not harsh, but firm. I looked through the peephole and instinctively stepped back. A police officer in uniform stood outside, notebook in hand, face serious but not tense. I opened the door slowly. "Hello? Miss Peyton Walker?" he asked. I nodded, my stomach tightening. "I'm Officer Lewis with the Seattle Police Department. We received a call from your parents' neighbor, along with a formal complaint filed from the address of Miss Diane Walker." "Your mother?" I froze, part confusion, part the sinking sense that what I was about to hear would defy reason. "A complaint about what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Officer Lewis glanced at his notes, then read without hesitation. "Elder abuse under the category of neglect. According to the filing, Miss Diane claims you deliberately refused to support your family during the holiday season, causing physical and emotional distress to elderly parents during a time of heightened sensitivity. Do you understand what that implies?" It felt like the air was sucked from my lungs, not from fear, but sheer disbelief. "Neglect? They said I neglected them?" He gave a small nod. "This is a formal complaint. It doesn't mean you're guilty. We're required to verify the claim as part of procedure." I invited him inside, poured him a glass of water, then provided my ID, lease agreement, plane ticket to Arizona, work invoices, and even the email from Mom 3 weeks earlier listing 8 dishes. "I was responsible for this Christmas." He went through each document, exhaled, and looked at me more closely. "You don't live with your parents?" "No. I've lived on my own since I was 22. They're in Tacoma, over an hour's drive away." "And you're the only one responsible for the holidays?" "No. At least I never agreed to that. But in reality, for years, I've been the one cooking, cleaning, organizing. They never asked. They assumed." He nodded and wrote in his notebook. The first report came from a neighbor who lives near your parents' house. She said she heard your mother crying, saying, "My daughter refused to handle Christmas, leaving her parents hungry and miserable on their own. We had to come because this involves elderly welfare." I gave a bitter laugh, not out of humor, but because I didn't know how else to react. "Do you honestly think elderly people will starve because their daughter didn't show up to cook Christmas dinner?" I asked, looking him straight in the eye. He didn't answer right away. He set his pen down and leaned slightly back against the sofa. "Do you know what your mother wrote in the complaint about the reason for your absence?" I stayed silent. He pulled a photocopy from his folder and slid it toward me. I read each line slowly. "Miss Peyton Walker, as the eldest daughter, has long been responsible for the family's important holidays. This year, she refused to carry out her responsibility. This led to emotional crisis for two elderly individuals, including my husband, Mr. Douglas Walker, who has a history of high blood pressure." I laid the paper on the table, my hands trembling not from fear but from the anger that had been boiling for months, spilling over like water rattling against a lid. "Officer Lewis, my father is not weak. He still drives himself to play golf 3 times a week. He books his own flights to attend veteran reunions. And my mother? She hosts a prayer group at her house every Thursday. Neither of them needs me to cook in order to survive." His expression softened. "Miss Walker, personally, I understand. But procedure is procedure. I'll file all of this in my report. You're not under arrest, you're not being penalized, but a record will exist. You also have the right to request an internal review if you believe this complaint was filed in bad faith." I nodded. "I want that." He stood, straightening his uniform. "One more thing. Under state law, anyone who knowingly files a false claim to harass, defame, or retaliate can face penalties. If you'd like, I can connect you with a community attorney for further advice. I'll consider it." My fists tightened. "Thank you for coming, and thank you for listening." When the door shut behind him, I collapsed into the chair. The room was so quiet, it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. I reached for my phone, almost called my father, but I stopped. If he was truly on my side, he would have called me days ago. If he didn't agree with Mom, he would have stopped her from filing. But there had been nothing. No text, no defense. I opened my laptop, went to my email, and began drafting a message to a legal advisor. I never thought I'd have to defend my dignity through legal paperwork, but I also never thought the woman who gave me life would turn my absence into a criminal accusation. I typed, "My name is Peyton Walker. I need advice regarding being falsely accused by my family of elder neglect. I have plenty of evidence to refute this. But I need to know, what can I do to end this while keeping my self-respect intact?" And below that, I added one more line just for myself, because I'm not leaving to get revenge. I'm leaving to preserve the part of me that hasn't yet been distorted. I realized the ordeal wasn't over when Ava sent me a screenshot on my way home after meeting with the community attorney. She wrote, "You need to see this." The screenshot was a Facebook post by Elaine Moore, my mom's cousin, living in Ohio. Elaine often showed up at holiday gatherings with her red wool shawl and booming voice, always bragging that her husband's family valued traditions so much they never skipped a single holiday dinner. Her post read, "Christmas is about family togetherness. Yet some ungrateful children, over petty dissatisfaction, abandon their parents to loneliness. I pray for Diane, a wonderful mother who has endured so much pain but still clings to hope. Please send her your love and support." Below the text was a photo. Tyler stood beside the dining table, spoon in hand, stirring a pot of soup, sleeves rolled up neatly, face angled perfectly in soft light streaming through the window. He looked like the picture of sincerity. In the bottom corner, a woman was bent over, setting down a tray of roast meat. The hand holding the tray was mine. the watch I wore, my tidy bun, the gray sweater I'd had on all day. My face cropped clean out of the frame. I wasn't surprised, but the wave of pain still hit, sharp and cold. I pulled the original photo from my hard drive where I had saved every holiday picture for the past decade. I found the exact one, taken last year when I was busy with lasagna. Mom wanted like Dad's birthday back in 2018. In the original, I was in the center of the frame, smiling faintly because Tyler had dropped a spoon into the salad bowl, splattering dressing onto Mom's blouse. Tyler was laughing awkwardly as he wiped her shirt, while I bent down to clean the table, unnoticed. I opened my private Facebook account, locked down for years. But I knew I had to say something, not out of anger, because silence now would let them keep rewriting the story. I posted the original photo, unedited, unfiltered, and below it, one caption written from a decade of exhaustion. 10 years absent from family photos, but always present in the kitchen. Today, I'm not posting to defend myself, just to remind that contributions don't always get applause, and sometimes you're erased from the picture long before you ever truly leave. I set the post to public. Then I flipped my phone face down, brewed tea, and sat on the balcony. I didn't expect the notifications to flood in within an hour. Distant relatives, old college friends, even former coworkers from New York, where I'd lived before moving to Seattle one by one. They reacted, commented, shared. A cousin I hadn't seen in 6 years messaged privately. "Peyton, I used to think you were controlling, but reading this, I see it's the opposite. You've been carrying it all." An old classmate from high school wrote, "My mom treated me the same way. Thank you for saying it out loud." And a stranger commented, "There are roles in families no one scripts for us, yet people expect us to play them flawlessly. When we stop, they call us the villain." I read every word. I didn't reply to all, but something inside me softened. That night, I got a call from Aunt Sylvia. "I read your post," her voice low but steady. "You said exactly what needed to be said, not one word extra." I leaned back, staring at the foggy night sky outside my window. "I just want people to stop pretending my absence is selfish." "You're not selfish," she said. "You're simply too worn down to keep carrying a family that never asked if the weight was crushing you." I heard her kettle whistle faintly on the other end, steady as breathing. "And what you did wasn't just for yourself," she added. "It was for people like me, people who walked away but never had the strength to speak. Tonight you spoke for us." I nodded, though she couldn't see. "I think sometimes the only person who needs to hear me speak is me." "That's true," she paused. "But there will be others who hear, and they will find you." When we hung up, Ava sent me another link. A family-focused blog had shared my post. The headline, "The Woman in the Kitchen," and the terrifying invisibility of the default role. I didn't smile. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt only one thing. I had been right to walk away. And the real fear wasn't being misunderstood. It was being quietly erased from the story while still expected to hold the story together. I landed in Arizona the morning of December 24, just as the sun stretched across the desert like a band of orange silk. The air was dry and clear enough that I could hear gravel crunch under each step. Ava picked me up at the airport in her old SUV, sunglasses covering half her face but eyes sparkling with joy. She hugged me tight, said nothing except, "We've finally left the kitchen." We drove nearly 3 hours south, past towering saguaros, red rocks glowing like fire-baked clay. Her tent was already pitched near a dry creek beside a wind-carved cliff. No cell service, no emails, no oven or dish towel haunting me the whole drive. We laid out sleeping mats, set up the camp stove, brewed coffee by hand, roasted potatoes in the embers. When night fell, we wrapped in blankets by the fire and asked the questions no one in our families ever did. Are you really happy? I talked about dinners where I never sat down. Ava talked about being forced into law school when she only wanted to design graphics. We didn't try to fix each other, we just listened. And that was enough. Around 8 p.m., as the embers dimmed, my phone suddenly lit with a signal. 1 bar, then 2. Ava blinked. You're getting service? I lifted the phone, turned on data. Messages poured in like a flood. From cousin Emily, Peyton, I just read your post. I showed it to my mom. I just left her house. I couldn't take it anymore, thank you. From a former colleague, I'm not going home this Christmas. I used your post as my excuse to finally choose peace. I read in silence until the screen lit with an incoming call. Grandpa, Doug, Walker. I froze, staring at the name glowing like something both foreign and familiar. Ava whispered, "Do you want to answer?" I nodded, pressed accept. "Hello, Grandpa." A pause, then his voice, rough but clear. "Peyton, it's me." "I know." My tone was neutral, neither warm nor cold. "I read your post. Online. Someone sent it to me." I said nothing. Wind whistled softly through the rocks, fire crackling faintly. "At first I wasn't going to call," he continued. "But your grandma's been gone 3 years now. And I thought, if I don't say this now, when will I?" I inhaled. "So what do you want to say to me?" "I don't know everything that goes on at home," he admitted. "But I saw one thing clearly. This Christmas, for the first time, I saw you. Alive." I turned my face so Ava wouldn't see my eyes shine. "When you were little," he went on, "every time you came to our house, you'd sneak books out to the porch, never noisy. Your mom always said, she's smart but too sensitive. But I always thought sensitivity isn't a flaw." My lips pressed tight. "I stayed quiet for years," he sighed. "But I want you to know I don't think you're wrong. And if you need someone on your side, I'm here." Softly, I said, "I don't want to fight the family, Grandpa. I just can't keep pretending anymore." "And that's why I'm calling," he replied, "because the one who doesn't pretend is the bravest of all." We were quiet for a few seconds. Before hanging up, he asked, "Where are you now?" "In the desert," I answered. "With the only person who doesn't need me to cook to believe I matter." He chuckled lightly. "Good. Then don't rush back until you're ready." I ended the call, sitting still as the fire dimmed. Ava leaned into me, no questions asked. In the vast silence of the desert, among rocks that had stood for millions of years, I finally felt what had been absent from every Christmas for a decade. My whole self, present, not cropped from the photo. Not drowned by applause meant for someone else, just me, living, no proof needed, no service owed, no permission required. On December 30th, Seattle's sky hung heavy with gray clouds, thick as wool blanketing the city, silent, cold, erasing the memory of golden desert light. I was brewing tea when the doorbell rang. No message, no appointment. I looked through the peephole. Standing outside were Mom, Dad, and Tyler. No one smiled. Their faces were taut, eyes fixed on the door like they were waiting for me to step out and face judgment. I opened the door and stepped aside. "Come in." Mom walked in first, her familiar holiday perfume lingering in the air. Dad followed slowly behind, hands buried in his coat pockets, avoiding my eyes. Tyler glanced around my apartment as if searching for a place to sit or for words to say, but unsure where to begin. I motioned them toward the sofa across from the tea table. I didn't pour water. I didn't offer cookies. I had no obligation to host them like honored guests. Mom set her purse down, fingers interlaced. "Peyton, you need to make this right." I looked directly at her. "What did I do wrong?" "Everyone expects you to apologize," she pressed, her voice raised slightly as if to drown out her own emotion. Tyler cut in, arms crossed. "You embarrassed the whole family. That post has spread through every relative. What do you want people to think? That mom starved you? That we neglected you? No one needs to think anything, I replied, my eyes never leaving Mom. I only told the truth. Dad had been silent since they arrived. When I turned to him, his gaze shifted away, landing on the wall clock as if it held something more important than this conversation. I rose, went to my bedroom, and returned with a stack of papers I had printed. I placed them gently on the table before them, like setting down a menu. I prepared this chart weeks ago, I said. 10 years, 38 holidays. Who cooked, who arrived late, who bought gifts, who received them, and who simply sat and asked for extra cranberry sauce. Mom stared at the stack as if it were foreign to her. Tyler leaned forward, skimming. You made all this just to prove a point? Tyler's voice hardened. It's not that serious. My lips tightened, but my voice remained steady. Not serious for you. You walk into dinner and get your wine poured. I stand behind the curtain, cooking, cleaning, and being cropped out of every photo. Mom frowned. You talk as if we never loved you. Love doesn't mean exploitation, I answered. I'm not refusing out of anger. I just won't keep living like my presence only has value when I'm serving. Tyler shot up from the sofa. You've been acting like a different person this whole year. I nodded. Because I stopped. I stopped staying silent just so you could call it tradition. I stopped treating silence as the price of existing in this family. Dad cleared his throat, the first sound he had made since walking in. I turned to him. What do you think, Dad? Do you have an opinion? He lifted his eyes slowly. I think maybe we've grown too used to letting you carry the heaviest load without noticing. Mom whipped her head toward him. Douglas, I'm only saying what I see, Dad replied, his tone calm but unusually firm. I didn't read her post online, but I read the printout. I saw myself in the ones who just sat there waiting for the meal to be served. I looked at him without reaction. Because in that moment, I realized he had seen me, at least in part. Mom shifted uneasily. She picked up the stack of papers, flipped through a few pages, then set it back down. So, what do you want? I sat across from her. I want to be treated as someone with feelings and limits, not as the default cook, not as the good daughter who takes on everything. We never meant. I cut her off. Not meaning doesn't erase the hurt. You never asked if I was tired. You only asked what dish was missing or if dinner would be on time. The air hung heavy, thick as winter fog. Tyler shrugged. So let's call this a turning point, fine? Everyone was wrong. Then what? I stood, resting my hand lightly on the table. Then you all go home. And you start learning how to live without me serving you. And I'll live without begging to be acknowledged. The three of them stayed silent. For a long time. Finally, Mom picked up her purse and rose. I need time. I opened the door. So do I. Dad was the last to leave. Just before stepping out, he turned back to me. Thank you for not shouting, he said. I gave a small nod. The door closed behind them. Not a final ending, but a door no longer carrying the draft of the kitchen into the living room, no longer wafting the smell of sauce from the oven into the hall. Only me, standing in my own apartment, for the first time feeling like home wasn't a place I had to cook in just to earn a seat at the table. That New Year's Eve, Seattle drizzled as if the sky itself was rinsing away old memories. I opened my apartment windows wide, unafraid of the cold seeping in. The smell of popcorn and cinnamon spread from the kitchen, mingling with mulled wine simmering on the stove. In the small space, soft yellow light wrapped everything in a peace that required no effort. The gathering I hosted was simple. No dress code, no blaring music, no one trapped in the kitchen longer than 10 minutes. Everyone brought a dish, the one they wanted to make, not one dictated by tradition. Ava brought vegetarian lasagna with almond cheese. cousin Emily, the one who had cried to me on Christmas night, carried a box of gingerbread cookies, most decorated clumsily but earnestly by her daughter. Grandpa arrived first, holding a jar of peppermint tea he had steeped himself for the stomach after too many things hard to digest, he said. Aunt Sylvia came a little later, in her gray knit hat with wooden buttons, carrying a basket of flaxseed bread. I didn't want to come empty-handed, she said, her eyes meeting mine with quiet warmth. I set out extra wooden chairs on the covered balcony, draped blankets over each. We all sat in a circle around a small heater. The wind was cold, but everyone's hands were warm with mugs of cocoa and bursts of laughter. I never thought you'd actually come, I said to Grandpa as he stirred his tea with a silver spoon. Why not? He squinted, taking a sip. Because all my life, I can't remember you at a single gathering unless Mom was running it. He chuckled, lines crinkling at his eyes. Maybe because I was never invited like this, not asked to bring anything, not told what to say, just present. Ava laughed. That was Peyton's only rule this year. If you want to come, you come, no conditions. Emily nodded, adding another piece of bread to her plate. For the first time in years, I don't have to fake a smile when my mom tells me I'm not good enough. I looked around, seeing each face free from old roles. No one fighting to speak, no one proving anything. Just fully there. We should take a picture, Ava suggested as the clock neared midnight. I pulled out my old digital camera, the one I had used years ago for my food blog. We cleared some cups from the table, adjusted the lights to keep the glow soft. I set the camera on a tripod, set the timer, and rushed to sit between Ava and Emily. Grandpa leaned back, his arm draped over the chair. Sylvia held her tea, eyes crinkling with her smile. Smile, I said as the light blinked. Click. The photo popped up on the screen. No one posed perfectly. No one angled their chin just right. But I studied it like treasure, not for the lighting or composition, but because no one in it had been cropped out. I uploaded it to my personal Instagram, rarely used but still mine. I typed a caption in English. Family is where you don't have to cook to be invited to the table. No hashtags, no tags. I just posted it, then turned off the screen. An hour later, while rinsing the last mugs in the sink, my phone buzzed. Ava smirked. Someone saw your story. I opened it. Tyler Walker had viewed it. No message, no emoji, just a quiet sign he had seen. I didn't know what he thought. Maybe he was angry, maybe just curious, but I wasn't looking for a response. It felt strange, though, after all those years of him being the center of every party while I cleared the tables, I was the one posting the photo, choosing who sat beside me. I turned off the living room lights, leaving only the small golden lamp in the corner. Ava curled on the couch, Grandpa dozed under a blanket, Sylvia and Emily whispered softly on the balcony. I carried a glass of water to the railing. Misty rain fell so light it barely dampened my shoulders. Down below, the city glowed through the fog, windows pulsing like steady heartbeats. I thought to myself, maybe New Year's Eve doesn't need bells or a perfect feast. Maybe it only needs people who see you without demanding you pour the wine, cook the food, or hide your feelings behind a polite smile. That night, I slept deeply. No dreams. No jolts awake from texts asking me to lend a hand. And in my sleep, I was still at the table, surrounded by people who chose me for me, not because I was the best at serving. I was arranging my work schedule for the new quarter when my phone rang. The screen read, Mom. I stared for a few seconds before answering, no longer with the old knot of dread. The boundaries I had built stood firm, strong enough not to collapse under a familiar voice. Her voice came through, not sharp, not raised. Just a soft breath across the line. Peyton, I'm calling to ask, if you're free this holiday, I'd like to cook with you. I stayed silent. My eyes landed on the corner of the table where I once stacked her endless lists of tasks, obligations bound by blood. Now that spot held photos of me with Ava, Grandpa, Emily, and Sylvia from last New Year's Eve. Sweetheart, I don't expect you to do everything, Mom continued. I reread what you wrote. I've been thinking a lot. Maybe I need to relearn how to be with you without only taking. I didn't answer right away. I had to be sure my response didn't come from pity or from falling back into the old habit of endurance. All right, I said, but on one condition. Her voice paused, waiting. Everyone brings a dish. Everyone who comes must wash at least one load of dishes. No one assigns their work to someone else. And Mom, if you truly want to cook with me, you have to make your dish with your own hands. No delegating. There was a silence. Then I heard a slow exhale, as if she was weighing not just a meal, but an entirely new way of being between us. I understand. We agreed to host a small dinner at my place in Seattle. I wasn't going back to Tacoma, not out of anger, but because I needed to protect this change in the space where I had rebuilt myself. The guest list was short: Dad, Mom, Tyler, Grandpa, Ava, Aunt Sylvia, and Emily. I sent a clear email listing every dish and every responsibility. No one replied with, "Oh, she's used to it, let her handle it." Everyone accepted their part like adults respecting a shared kitchen. That afternoon, Mom arrived early with a bag of potatoes, a few sprigs of rosemary, and a small handwritten recipe card for the honey-roasted potatoes I had made 2 years earlier. She said, "I've never made this myself, but I want to learn." I showed her how to slice the potatoes just thin enough, how to season without drowning out their natural flavor. She followed slowly, clumsy but not frustrated. Honey smeared her sleeve, strands of hair fell loose, yet her face looked lighter, like something heavy between us had finally been set down. Tyler came next, carrying a kale and apple salad. I was genuinely surprised. "You made this yourself?" I asked. He scratched his head. "With Ava on FaceTime. I was scared I'd dry it out." I nodded, no sarcasm, no reproach. Only a softening inside me. Grandpa brought wine. Emily brought blueberry pie. Sylvia carried a small ceramic box filled with handwritten cards. "Whoever gets one, keeps it," she said. Dinner began before I had even finished setting the glasses. But unlike every other year, no one sat waiting. Tyler rolled up his sleeves to wipe the counter. Dad carried out extra chairs to the balcony. Ava adjusted the lamp on the shelf. Mom held the knife to slice pie, her hand trembling a little, but her lips pressed in a quiet smile. When we finally sat down at the table, I didn't get up. I didn't run to fetch more sauce. I didn't open the cupboard for another spoon. I lifted my glass like everyone else, clinking quietly with Sylvia, who looked at me and said only one thing: "You did it." In the middle of dinner, I caught Mom watching me for a long while. Not with scrutiny, not with that old tired praise of "you're so good" that always drained me, but with a quiet gaze, like she was finally reading a book she'd never opened before. After the meal, everyone rose on their own to clean up. Emily washed, Tyler stacked trays, Mom wiped the table. No one passed the work off. No one said, "Let her do it all." I stood in the kitchen corner, towel in hand, drying dishes, feeling like I was watching the very thing I had always imagined as a child: a family working together through shared responsibility, not through one person's silent sacrifice. When almost everything was tidy, I returned to the dining room to gather a few stray glasses. On the edge of the table, at the place where I had sat, lay a small card. Handmade paper, handwriting slanted but careful. I opened it, reading each line. "You deserve to be loved, not because you serve, but because you are yourself. I'm sorry for forgetting that for too long." I folded the card and slipped it into my pocket. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to, because some words, once written, don't need to be spoken aloud at the table. They find their place in the heart of the one who receives them. And they stay there, like a quiet breath, gentle but lasting. I still keep that card in the drawer of my desk. Each time I open it, I remember not just that night, but the long journey from the girl always standing behind the kitchen door to the woman who could invite her family to the table on conditions she set herself, grounded in respect and understanding. To many, cooking or holiday traditions may seem trivial, but sometimes those very small things map out an entire value system within a family. Who gets cared for, who must carry the weight, who is assumed to be priority, and who is expected to sacrifice without complaint. What about you? Have you ever carried responsibility in silence simply because you were the daughter or the sister? Have you ever sat at a table feeling like you didn't belong only because no one was willing to see you as a true part of the family? Share your thoughts in the comments. I truly want to listen. Because sometimes being able to tell your story and have someone hear it is its own quiet but profound kind of healing. And if this story touched a memory or feeling within you, hit follow on this channel so you won't miss the next ones. Ordinary lives with extraordinary echoes, about dinners, empty chairs, and the moments when we learn to love ourselves again inside families that once made us doubt it.